Today we're going to focus on the front kick from either leg. So by front, we're just talking about the direction that we're going, okay? We're going to talk about snapping specifically. In other words, we're not going to be committing like we did in self-preservations, where we kick and we land forward, all right? We're just going to be trying to sting and bounce out. Then we're going to talk about side control and the side mountain, how we can handle ourselves down there for the street aspect, and how to make a tiny shift to what we were doing for sport jiu-jitsu, what we can do with our hands a little bit differently, so that way we can pop up and get out of dodge if that's what we have to do. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move right into the kicks. You know, we can practice these from a training horse or from a passive horse, and I prefer to do them from the passive horse since this mimics a little bit of reality. And one time I said that and someone's like, well, when in the world are you going to be kicking from a flat-footed stance? My answer to that is I've done so at least a dozen times, working the door, nightclub security or bouncing. So a lot of times you're not going to be in a neutral bow in a fighting stance or something like that. When someone grabs you, it's very useful to be able to pick up your knee and boop, pop somebody in the front of their thigh, in the knee, and the inside of their shin to disrupt them. Now, the point being, kicking from a terrible position is definitely something you need to have in your toolbox or in your arsenal. Okay, so what I want you to do is we're going to start with the front ball kick. Now, the snapping ball kick involves this part of the foot, as opposed to the snapping oblique kick, which uses this part of the foot. And the difference between the two is really going to be your alignment to the target you're trying to hit. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. For now, let's just get the blood flowing a little bit. So you're in your passive training horse stance. Go ahead and load up your left side. Okay, just pick up your leg a little bit and check your balance. See how you are doing as far as balance is concerned. And put your foot down. And obviously we're taking this from day number 1, as if we have never kicked before. Go ahead now, lean on the other side, load up that leg and hip, pick up your foot, and see how you're doing. Okay? You can do this for as long as it takes to get stable. The next phase would be to stand there with my knee up. Okay? And that means if I'm doing like this, just deal with it. Okay, this is why we're here. We're training. From this side, pick up my knees, see how I'm doing. If I start to wobble, okay. Then what we're going to do is slide over, pick up our knee, extend the kick, bring it back in, set it down. In that order. Slide, up, kick, back, and down. The snapping means that we bring it back a little bit quicker than we threw it out there. Okay? Now, that is the front snapping ball kick from the passive training horse stance. The oblique kick is going to be very similar, except you'll notice when I was throwing this kick, it pretty much went out to 12 o'clock. It doesn't have to, but it did naturally, just the way my hips, my knee, everything lines up. With the oblique kick, I use this if my target is not at that 12 o'clock area. So maybe a 1:30, 2 o'clock, or a 10:30, 11 o'clock from my perspective. Okay, so if I want to kick the person on the inside of the thigh just above the knee, I could use a snapping oblique kick. And I'm using the area of the foot that is the sole of the foot from the middle to the heel anywhere down there. It's going to be really effective. Okay, so I pick it up, kick it, bring it back, bring it down. So those are two different types. I can throw them also from a neutral bow stance. All I'm going to do is pivot my feet when needed. Okay, so from a neutral bow, pivot, bring it back. Rear to front, stance change, pivot, bring it back. Okay, or if I needed to throw an oblique kick, oblique. Throwing these kicks allows me to sting the bad guy, possibly injure, definitely disrupt, and set up, hopefully, me shooting to their side and getting one of the preferred positions, because we have to make contact. We have to get in close to this individual. All right, next, let's talk about side control. And I really want to emphasize side control over side mount, especially for real life scenarios, okay? If you're in a fight, you need to fight with everything you've got and then leave, get to safety, okay? So if you find yourself on the ground with somebody and you, boom, you notice you are in side control, you don't want to stay over there draped, you know, one elbow in their hip, one elbow in their neck, hands down, adding pressure chest to chest and just waiting. You don't have time for that because he's got a buddy, right? What do we look for? Where are their hands? Where's the weapon? And where are their friends? We always assume they have friends, so we need to get back up. A better way to do that, instead of draping your elbow over their belly and making contact, you know, getting the connection to their hip, would be to have that arm actually on the near side of you, your palm in their hip, while this hand is still under their head, but actually draping under their tricep. So I'm going to show you that in a video with my partner here in a little bit, but I want you to know that that is the reason why we do that. We have to be able to control via the hip and their head the amount of movement they have or do not have, the amount of pressure we have chest to chest, and our ability to see. If I'm draped over them, I can't see as much as if I'm looking around like this. And I can get up, access a different weapon, or run. That's what we're talking about there.
For side control, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what position I want to obtain. Okay? I want to be chest on chest with my attacker, or my opponent. I want to be on the toes of my feet. So you're going to see a little bit, I'm going to have all my weight on him, so it makes it difficult for him to breathe. And I do have a preferred way of controlling the individual. I know a lot of you have seen sport jujitsu. We will have our hands here, we're up on our toes like so, and our elbows are in tight, okay? I was shown another way to keep this arm here in control and a hand on his hip. This is where I prefer to be for side control, okay? I can do a lot more offensively for the street, from the street, with this arm free and not being all the way over from here. So I'm going to be on my toes, all my weight's going to be chest to chest. I'm pulling him in tight here, my elbow is here, and I have this here. If this hand comes into my face, I can always swim it away, if need be, okay? But I don't want to have my elbow over here. So this is the way I control where I'm going to move from here, and this is side control.